Across the world, there are routes not designed to guarantee safety, but to force humans to confront sheer heights, extreme weather, and the fragile limits of their own control. These can be roads clinging to vertical cliffs, passages that exist only briefly when tides retreat, or bridges and railways cutting through oceans, deserts, and frozen mountains. Every curve carries risk, where fog, violent winds, ice, or impossibly narrow pavement allow no margin for error. In remote and isolated regions, nature always holds absolute authority, turning simple travel into a true test of survival. This is a journey across the world's most dangerous roads, where every meter forward demands total focus and real courage. Bayburt Off-Road, Turkey. Few suspect that this deadly road was carved into the rock cliff by the Russian army using only picks, shovels, and primitive explosives in 1916 to transport heavy artillery. Climbing straight to an altitude of over 6,600 feet. This is where thin air and fickle weather can cause fog strips to suddenly swallow all visibility in the void. From the top of 29 vertical hairpin turns, the path just traveled lies stacked right beneath the feet, like the edge of a skyscraper with no escape. The dirt road is so narrow that at sharp turns, drivers are forced to hold their breath and perform forward and reverse maneuvers right at the mouth of the bottomless abyss to squeeze through. On the edge of the unguarded road, floating clouds often obscure the ground, turning this journey into a life-and-death gamble with wild nature. Overcoming this road is not simply moving, but a certificate for the courage and superior skills of drivers who dare to look straight into the eyes of death. Ma Pileng Pass, Vietnam. It is no coincidence that this road is named Horse Nose, where the slope is so treacherous that even the most durable animals are exhausted and collapse. Rising above the deep green forests, the landscape here is a desert of billions of sharp cat-ear rocks pointing straight to the sky like cold spikes. At the foot of the pass is a fracture canyon, nearly 3,000 feet deep, a massive geological scar created from the Earth's crust hundreds of millions of years ago. Flowing at the bottom of the abyss is a river carrying a strange emerald green color, mixed from freshwater algae and calcium salts melting from ancient limestone cliffs. The harshness peaks when wind gusts are compressed in the narrow canyon, blowing hard enough to lift the handlebars and push travelers toward the deep abyss. It is this thorny and haunting beauty that honors Ma Pi Leng as the uncrowded king, dominating all the most majestic mountain passes in Vietnam. The Nina Express, Switzerland. Few believe that this train can challenge gravity to climb to the top of the Alps using only wheel adhesion without any supporting cogwheel system. Thanks to the giant dome glass design extending from floor to ceiling, all visual barriers are removed, making tourists feel like they are floating amidst the majestic mountains. At the pass summit, nature treats the eyes with two lakes lying side by side, one milky white from melting ice, the other deep black from underground springs, creating a fascinating contrast. The journey is a time miracle, taking viewers from the region of eternal ice down to the warm Mediterranean climate in just 4 hours. The thrill comes from the horseshoe-shaped winding tracks, where the train curls up so that passengers in the first car can see the tail behind. This is one of the rare 3 railways in the world recognized by UNESCO as a heritage site, proving that humans can pass through nature without destroying it. Passage du Gois, France. This is not merely a path, but an ocean magician when twice a day, this road silently sinks into the sea, severing all connections with the mainland. The real danger lies not in the depth, but in the violent cross currents, strong enough to sweep a 3,000-pound car freely out to open sea. Nature sets a harsh rule of survival, granting humans only a scant 3 hours when the tide recedes to cross, and anyone late must pay with their life. The glowing red electronic signs at the start do not carry normal traffic meanings, but a cold ultimatum. Turn back immediately or prepare to face death. The most surreal scene occurs when the water rises 13 feet, turning the asphalt into a seabed for ships to glide calmly right over where cars just rolled. The peak of drama is the annual foot race, where athletes must sprint against the tide, turning every step into a breathtaking chase with the rising water. Col de la Bonnette, France. Few know that to beat neighboring rivals, the French intentionally built an extra loop to raise this pass to 9,193 feet, making it the roof of European roads. The higher you go, the more surreal the scenery becomes as the pitch-black shale contrasts with white snow, creating the feeling that you are driving on the surface of the moon. Amidst that silence, the only echoing sound is the whistling alarm of fat marmot squirrels hiding in rock crevices. Even the biggest enemy of supercars here is not the police, but thousands of sheep leisurely flooding the road to block the way. However, hidden behind the peaceful beauty are ruins of abandoned military camps with empty windows like dead eye sockets looking down into the valley. This place was once part of the fortified Maginot Line during World War II, with reinforced concrete bunkers still hidden, pointing artillery towards the Italian border. Train to the Clouds, Argentina. This train is not just a means of transport, but a surreal journey taking humans off the ground to touch the deep blue sky of the universe. At a dizzying height of over 13,800 feet, the thin atmosphere turns the sky into a magical indigo, where white clouds gather right beneath the tourists' feet. This beauty comes with extreme harshness, where ultraviolet rays can burn skin in 15 minutes, and only moss species living up to 3,000 years can survive. The most spectacular highlight is the 1,600-ton steel bridge curved perfectly over the abyss with no guardrails, creating the feeling that the train is floating. To ensure life against altitude sickness, a team of doctors and oxygen tanks are always on duty on these trains, moving slowly at only 22 miles per hour. It took 27 long years to build this mineral transport road, but today it carries the dreams of humanity wanting to conquer the final frontier of nature. Iron ore train, Mauritania. Likened to a real-life version of the movie Mad Max, this train is a giant mechanical monster offering the harshest survival experience on the planet. With a total weight of up to 17,000 tons, it is as heavy as 3 moving Eiffel Towers and up to 2 miles long, making the ground shake violently whenever it passes. Passengers must accept sleeping on sharp iron ore blocks like a bed of nails, letting the violent shaking bruise their bodies throughout the long night. Not stopping there, the human body is tortured by insane temperature ranges. Baked at 122 degrees Fahrenheit during the day and frozen near 32 degrees Fahrenheit when night falls. The landscape along the way is absolute solitude, where shiny black granite rocks rise from nowhere like dead islands amidst the vast sand ocean. This railway built by the French is the sole bloodline feeding an entire nation, because if the train stops, the economy here will immediately suffer a heart attack. Taroko Gorge Road, Taiwan. Driving through this road is not a normal journey, but a bold intrusion into the heart of a massive marble block compressed for 4 million years. At the bottom of the abyss, the river rolls with a cloudy jade green color, not due to pollution, but because of tons of crushed stone powder and shale dissolving into the water. Right on the dark tunnel walls, car lights will sweep across the exquisite winding veins of natural stone, a luxury usually seen only in royal palaces. However, this magnificent beauty comes with lurking death, where walking tourists are required to wear construction helmets because falling rocks are a daily specialty. There are tunnel sections so narrow they fit just one bus body, forcing drivers to hold their breath and reverse hundreds of feet in the dark to yield to each other. Facing the suffocating dominance of nature, humans suddenly become as small as an ant crawling quietly in the crack of a giant rock. James W. Dalton Highway, USA. Few believe this 414-mile road to the Arctic Ocean was completed in just 5 months in 1974 to serve the flow of black gold. Not built on soil, the entire route sits precariously on permafrost, where engineers had to pile gravel 7 feet thick to prevent the road from sinking into deadly pits. Harshness peaks in winter when temperatures drop to -80 degrees Fahrenheit, making metal brittle like glass and tires shatter if stopped for too long. Time is distorted here. Summer has 24 hours of hallucinogenic sunlight, while winter sinks into eternal darkness like a horror movie scene. Under the wheels of giant trucks, billions of razor-sharp shale rocks shoot out like bullets, forcing every traveler to carry at least 2 spare tires to survive. However, the reward for such recklessness is the chance to watch purple and green auroras dancing in the night sky at one of the loneliest places on Earth. Atlantic Ocean Road, Norway. Instead of hiding inland, this road boldly dances on the ocean, hopping from island to island across magical winding bridges. Honored as the construction of the century, it possesses causeways so low to the water that drivers feel like they are steering a canoe through waves when the tide rises. However, that beauty harbors death when waves up to 50 feet crash ashore like sledgehammers ready to sweep vehicles into the deep sea. To fight wind speeds over 60 miles per hour, bridges must be aerodynamically curved to cancel drag, preventing cars from being blown away like autumn leaves. Amidst the harsh nature, they still designed walkways jutting out, where visitors can cast lines to catch cod directly into the swirling waters. It is this dramatic, deadly beauty that turned it into the perfect stage for breathtaking action scenes in the blockbuster spy movie 007. Pamban Bridge Route, India. Few suspect that since 1914, the British boldly built this first sea railway in one of the planet's most corrosive environments. Salt spray and humidity here destroy steel 10 times faster than on land, forcing humans into an endless maintenance battle against the ocean. Because the track is too narrow and lacks guardrails, passengers endure the chilling illusion of gliding directly on rough waves without any support. Danger always lurks when automatic anemometers turn red if winds exceed 36 miles per hour, forcing the train to stand still amidst the open sea. The magical highlight lies in the central span designed by German engineers, using a rolling mechanism on giant gears to open the way for ships. To survive on sinking geology, trains only dare to move at 6 miles per hour, turning every trip into a breathtaking slow-motion movie. Nariz del Diablo, Ecuador. Seen from afar, this massive volcanic rock appears with the shape of a hooked, rugged nose of a demon, coldly looking down into the abyss. To conquer the nearly vertical cliff, engineers had to use massive amounts of explosives to blast rock, creating the railway known as the most difficult in the world. The challenge lies in the train having to climb an altitude of 1,640 feet in just 8 miles, a nearly impossible slope ratio. However, the price paid was the lives of over 2,000 slaves and prisoners, so many that it is rumored there is a body under every railroad tie. Right at the edge of the unguarded track is a deep abyss, where the tiny river below is ready to swallow anything that falls. When the train drops altitude suddenly, the atmospheric pressure changes quickly, causing passengers' ears to pop, like a reminder of the extreme danger of the Devil's Nose. Kuranda Scenic Railway, Australia. Few know that this train runs through Earth's Living Museum, a tropical rainforest 130 million years old, older than the legendary Amazon. To conquer the height of 1,076 feet on sinking volcanic soil, 1,500 men had to use bare hands and explosives to slice through the 90-degree vertical mountainside. In the rainy season, giant waterfalls crash down right next to the tracks, covering the cars in white mist, making tourists feel like they are passing through the eye of a storm. The groaning metal and creaking wood as the train crosses bridges are a chilling reminder of human fragility before the deep abyss below. In the past, this railway transformed into a giant ambulance, carrying thousands of World War II wounded soldiers to high mountains to avoid tropical diseases. This journey is not just tourism, but an exploration into the planet's memory, where wild nature reigned long before humans appeared. White Pass and Yukon Route, Canada. Born from the fury of the gold rush in 1898, this railway was a gamble challenging death as engineers determined to bend every law of physics. More than 35,000 workers had to fight snowstorms and use up to 450 tons of explosives to slice through the hardest coastal granite cliffs on the planet. To cling to the vertical cliffs, the track was narrowed to less than 3 feet, making the train wobble in the whistling wind like a lonely wild beast. The most ghostly highlight is the pitch-black, rusty steel cantilever bridge abandoned over the abyss, standing bare as a monument to the harshness of nature. From a gold-seeking path, it transformed into a silent war machine during World War II, transporting vital supplies to protect North America. Today, when all contact with the modern world is cut off, it stands on par with the Eiffel Tower as a great engineering masterpiece, where humans only face the wilderness. Georgetown Loop Railroad, USA. Born from the ambition of the Silver Rush in 1884, this engineering marvel is proof of humans using mathematics to conquer vertical cliffs. To overcome an elevation difference of nearly 650 feet in a short distance, engineers had to extend the track to 4 miles using crisscrossing spiral knots. The breathtaking highlight is the 98-foot high viaduct connected only by rivets and crude steel, an architectural miracle of that time. The creepiest feeling is when the train crosses the bridge. Visitors look down, seeing only the abyss without tracks, feeling like they are floating. Sitting in windowless cars, you will suffer the bone-chilling cold and hear the steam whistle echoing like thunder in the canyon. Few know that this masterpiece was completely destroyed to sell for scrap metal in 1939 before being revived from the ashes in the 80s. Karakoram Highway, Pakistan. People liken this to a road built of blood and flowers, where on average for every kilometer of asphalt laid, one worker's life was left behind forever. At the highest point, reaching 15,400 feet, oxygen levels dropped to just 55%, causing even the healthiest people to collapse from altitude sickness. This is the only place in the world where you drive alongside black glaciers crawling down from the killer mountain that no one had conquered in winter until recently. Amidst the cold, grey rocks, trucks decorated brilliantly like mobile theatres, costing up to 2 years of income, become vibrant highlights. Tragic beauty is present through a stunning turquoise lake, which is actually a scar from a landslide disaster that buried an entire village and blocked the river. To touch life on the other side of the river, visitors must gamble their lives on primitive suspension bridges, swaying violently over water as cold as 39 degrees Fahrenheit. Leh Manali Highway, India. Perched on the boundary between heaven and hell, this strategic route is where the army fights nature to maintain a lifeline nearly 295 miles long. Here, physical laws are bent as water boils at 176 degrees Fahrenheit, leaving food undercooked, while engines easily catch fire from overheating. The human body must endure a strange torture, getting sunburned skin under solar radiation while suffering frostbite in the shade at the same time. Defying death, this remains a pilgrimage site for crazy riders on Royal Enfield bikes, conquering heights with the proud, distinctive thumping sound. Kishtwar Killer Road, India. Likened to a scar of death, this trail is essentially a small groove, manually carved into the vertical cliffs of the Himalayas. Below is an abyss, up to 3,300 feet deep, where the rushing river is ready to crush anything that falls, making the chance of recovering bodies nearly zero. It is an extreme neural challenge when drivers must steer through waterfalls, pouring onto slippery dirt roads right next to the unguarded precipice. The real nightmare strikes when two vehicles meet, forcing one to reverse hundreds of yards on a road barely wide enough for wheels to find a passing spot. Disregarding danger, local drivers still casually steer dilapidated buses with worn-out tires through here, with one hand as if taking a stroll. Although a gamble of life, this is the only lifeline helping locals avoid detouring hundreds of miles over several days to connect with the world. Sichuan-Tibet Highway, China. Likened to the world's cruelest elevator, this journey forces travelers to climb a total accumulated altitude of over 65,600 feet, equivalent to 2.5 times Mount Everest. At mountain peaks, oxygen concentration drops by half, causing car engines to lose 40% of their power, while the human brain swells in hammer-like headaches. The real nightmare manifests through 99 hairpin turns stacked like intestines, dropping nearly 6,600 feet in altitude in just a short distance. Overcoming danger, the landscape opens up to immense grasslands running endlessly, where black yak herds appear like musical notes on a giant carpet. Nature is even so magical that eternal glaciers crawl down right to the road's surface, allowing you to touch million-year-old blue ice blocks. However, the harshness and deprivation here have caused many couples to break up, because only when facing endurance limits is the true nature of humans exposed. Hana Highway, USA. Few know that this beautiful road was carved from steel-hard basalt cliffs by the bare hands of prisoners in 1910. It winds like a giant snake 64 miles long, forcing drivers to wrestle with 620 continuous curves, averaging a turn every 525 feet. Trees interlace to form dense botanical tunnels miles long, where sunlight only filters through in spots like daytime stars. The miracle is that you do not need to get out of the car to see waterfalls, as dozens of streams pour directly from the cliffs, soaking the windshield. On one side are fern-covered cliffs, on the other is an abyss plunging straight into the deep blue ocean without guardrails, creating the sensation of flying over the sea. However, death always lurks beneath that beauty, as flash floods from upstream can suddenly rise and sweep away tourists, even when the sun is shining beautifully. 99 Bend Road to Tianmen Mountain, China. Resembling a giant white dragon, winding its way up to the nine heavens, this crazy masterpiece was carved alive into 90-degree vertical cliffs. Carrying the divine number 99 symbolizing the nine heavens, the road leads mortals straight from the lower world to the fairy realm. However, the road to paradise is full of danger, with 180-degree hairpin turns so tight they choke you, stacked on top of each other like slices of sandwich meat. On days covered in fog, the road surface completely disappears, making vehicles look like they are gliding in the clouds, full of eerie and magical beauty. To create these legendary 7 miles, thousands of workers had to hang suspended on the cliffs for 8 long years, betting their lives against death. The drama reached its peak when an SUV not only climbed all the asphalt, but also crazily drove straight up 999 steep steps to pass through the Heaven Gate. Kahekili Highway, USA. Named after the brutal thunder god who built his house with enemy bones, this road is truly a life-and-death gamble amidst wild nature. It cuts along the ancient volcanic flank with a cookie-like porous structure where falling rock signs become meaningless because drivers have no room to dodge. The landscape appears violent, with the sharp contrast between the red of sliding earth, the green of invading jungles, and the deep blue ocean. When rain falls, volcanic dust turns into a slippery mud trap, ready to slide even the strongest four-wheel drive vehicles sideways into the abyss. Psychological pressure weighs heavily on the passenger as their view through the window is completely swallowed by the deep void instead of the safe road surface. This is not a path for the faint of heart, but a naked neural challenge where beauty and death always go hand in hand. Denali Star, Alaska. Few know that the clear polar air creates a visual illusion, making the giant mountain taller than Everest from base to summit seem just a few miles from the train window. The train glides past brilliant pink-purple flower carpets, signaling snow is coming, taking tourists from dense conifer forests to the barren tundra where only moss survives. The most heart-stopping feeling is when the train crosses a steel bridge over a canyon 295 feet deep, where passengers looking down see only nothingness, like floating. However, this journey is a game of luck, as only 30% of visitors have the chance to see the proud peak completely without clouds covering it.